You know that moment when you suddenly realize, like a slap in the face of reality? Well, that's how Maria Clara realized that, to her own family, she was just an expendable detail. Imagine finding out on Facebook that your sister is getting married, and you, the only blood sibling, aren't even mentioned. The pain of family rejection isn't just the lack of an invitation. It's the silent cry of someone who spent their life trying to fit in. But wait, this story has an unexpected twist. In this story, we delve into a whirlwind of conflict, forgotten sacrifices, and a twist worthy of a drama series script. There's relief, yes. Is there revenge? Perhaps. But above all, there's empowerment. If you've ever felt like you always give everything and receive emotional crumbs in return, brace yourself. This story is a powerful mirror, and it may even spark your own personal transformation. You're about to understand why taking down the roof was much more than an act of eviction. It was a cry for emotional justice. Shall we continue? Maria Clara didn't expect to be the center of attention, but she also didn't expect to be ignored at the most important moment in her sister's life. Discovering by chance on social media that Ana Julia was getting married without even being invited was like receiving an invisible punch in the face. It's not just the event itself, but what it symbolizes: a silent rupture, a carefully planned exclusion. Family rejection hurts more than any romantic breakup. The hardest blow came when she called her mother and heard bluntly that she wasn't considered family. There, it wasn't just the voice on the phone speaking. It was the entire story of a life shattered in seconds. How many times have we molded ourselves, given up, tried to fit in? Maria Clara pursued her own path independently, yes, but that should be a source of pride, not punishment. The pain of being excluded wasn't just in the words, but in the silence that followed. It's in these moments that we begin to question ourselves. Is the problem within me? Does being different mean being disposable? Maria Clara understood there that blood ties don't guarantee affection, and that no matter how hard we try, not everyone will recognize our worth. But don't worry, this wound will turn into strength. Some believe that generosity has its rewards, but Maria Clara gave without expecting anything in return. When her parents were desperate, with no money to pay the rent, she was the first to lend a hand. She gave up her own home, the fruit of years of sacrifice, hard work, and sleepless nights planning the month. And she did it with an open heart, without contracts, without demands, only with a sincere desire to help. The house became the home of her parents and Ana Julia, but it was never acknowledged as the gesture it truly was. There was no meaningful gratitude or respect for the origin of that roof. And the cruelest part? At the time of the wedding, when Maria Clara expected, at the very least, to be remembered, she was treated as an extra in her own story. That's what truly hurts, when sacrifice becomes invisible. If you've ever been that person who always helped, who kept the family together, and still found yourself excluded, you know all too well the bitter taste of that disappointment. Maria Clara learned there that boundless altruism can become a passport to ingratitude, but she also understood that there's a line between being good and being stupid. And that's where the turning point begins. After days of reflecting on her resentment, Maria Clara did what many fear. She made a definitive decision. The house, which had once been a symbol of welcome, would now be her instrument of emotional justice, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. She wrote a straightforward message. She wanted the house back, without luxuries or justifications. It was the decision of someone who finally understood that she no longer needed to prove her worth to anyone. Silence. That was the first response, the kind of silence that screams, that carries within it the arrogance of someone who believes the threat will pass. But it didn't. And then the phones started ringing. Calls from her mother, her father, and even Ana Julia herself. Suddenly, the disowned daughter had become the protagonist, not out of affection, but out of convenience. But now, Maria Clara had a new armor, the awareness of her own worth. It's funny how, when we stop giving in, the world around us becomes unstable. And that's a good sign. It means the pattern has been broken. Maria Clara was no longer the different daughter, but the woman who set boundaries. And just between you and me, When someone who always said yes learns to say no, there's no going back. The first to react was Ana Julia, of course, with that tone of contempt typical of someone who has never had to fight for anything. She called Maria Clara dramatic, accusing her of wanting attention, as if evicting her parents were a whim and not the logical consequence of years of ignorance. It's always like this. When someone who has always remained silent decides to speak out, they become the villain of the story. The parents weren't far behind. They came with the classic emotional manipulation manual. You can't do this to your own family. After all we've done for you. Prefabricated phrases, loaded with guilt, but devoid of recognition. Now, suddenly, everyone remembered that Maria Clara was part of the family. Ironically, only when losing the house became a real threat. And Maria Clara? Firm. For the first time, speaking her own mind and not giving in to blackmail. She made it clear, this wasn't about marriage, it was about dignity. She wasn't about being used anymore. And the most beautiful thing was seeing that, despite the criticism, she didn't lose her balance. When we have a clear purpose, even accusations lose their power. What no one expected was that Ana Julia's fiancé, Roberto, would be the trigger for a radical change. When he discovered that the house where he lived with his future wife was actually that of his estranged sister, and that Ana Julia had known it all along, he couldn't stand it any longer. He called off the wedding. It was that simple. He didn't want to marry someone who would humiliate his own family. That, my friends, is character in action. It was a crushing blow. Ana Julia, accustomed to having everything her way, suddenly saw her castle crumble. The perfect girlfriend was exposed, not only to her boyfriend, but also to her friends and family, and all because of a simple truth she tried to hide. That someone there had made real sacrifices, while she lived in a fairy tale, supported by the sister she had scorned. This moment, as impactful as it was, brought a revelation. The universe has a curious way of rebalancing things, and sometimes emotional justice emerges from where you least expect it. Maria Clara, who had always been the invisible one, was now the figure who most impacted that story. And there was still one last chapter to be written. Even when everything was crumbling around her sister, Maria Clara didn't give up. Her mother begged, cried, and pleaded for compassion. But this time, her heart was protected, not out of coldness, but out of survival instinct. She had spent a lifetime trying to be accepted, and when she finally respected herself, she understood that true love doesn't require self-denial. Being firm doesn't mean being cruel. It means knowing where caring for others ends and caring for yourself begins. The image of the mother begging her daughter not to be so harsh contrasts with the indifference of yesteryear when the marriage was naturally hidden. Now, when the house has become a bargaining chip, Maria Clara has gone from being irrelevant to a potential savior. And she wasn't fooled. With disconcerting calm, he told her, "I gave you 1 month. Stick to it." It was the end of the emotional manipulation and the beginning of a new Maria Clara. On moving day, Ana Julia's gaze was pure hatred. But deep down, she knew. The one leaving defeated wasn't Maria Clara. She was the one who bounced back, the one who faced the family breakdown, the one who turned rejection into redemption. And when she closed the door of the house, for the first time truly hers, it was like turning a bicycle key. She didn't just reclaim a piece of property, she took ownership of her own life. And you, how far would you go to earn respect? Maria Clara didn't turn her back on her family. She simply stopped accepting their invisibility. How many times have you silenced your pain to keep the peace? How many times have you given in, and in the end, been left empty? Perhaps it's time to rethink where love ends and emotional abuse disguised as family begins. If this story moved you, don't let it die here. Use it as a mirror, an inspiration, a warning. What spaces in your life do you need to reclaim? It could be your space, your courage, your voice. Don't be afraid to close doors. Sometimes it's in that act that freedom enters through the window. Did you enjoy this reflection? Then don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and share this content with those who need to hear this story. The next turning point could be yours. Se quiser saber o que estava escrito ali e por que essa história ainda não acabou, clique agora no vídeo que está aparecendo na tela. E se esse testemunho tocou o seu coração, se inscreva no canal e compartilhe com alguém que precisa recuperar a própria voz.